Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the first installment of Bash
Bash the
the
Bash. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get the cadence going. I'm happy to be with you though, nonetheless.
So, we're doing a co-host collaboration between Bullhorn Bulletin and 10 Media, and
Yeah.
this is Issac Jasper. If you want to tell folks about yourself, and then I can tell a little bit about myself, and then we can get into what we're going to be talking about today, which is Charlie Kirk's assassination and the fallout and the crazy ass gaslighting that we've been seeing, and
Whitewashing.
the whitewashing,
Mm.
gaslighting of his legacy. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, Issac, and then yeah, so super stoked for this first collaboration, by the way.
I am right there with you. I just first off want to say thank you for uh, you know coming to me with this opportunity to sit down with another journalist. For those that don't know, my name is Issac Jasper. I am the founder and editor of Tin Media, which is a decolonial news outlet here on YouTube. And you can also find us on Spotify as well, and we're looking to get back on other platforms as soon as the time fits us. But my modus operandi, I guess, it's a new word I've come across, uh, is making sure that people know the truth. And I think that this setting, this uh, production is going to get people really to understand the importance of truth and getting to understand why, in a time where we are seeing techno fascists run rampant, that people like me and Zaina are, the individuals that tell the truth 100% of the time versus, the mainstream media outlets that are ran by oligarchs. So I'm happy to be here. If you guys want to check me out again, my subheader below is Tin Media, and I'm really looking forward to these episodes that we're rolling out. We actually have some that are already planned. So this is just one of many that has already been in production. We're just slowly but surely, rolling them out. So I'm
If
I'm
we packed
very
it all
excited
in,
to be
it would
here.
be a 6 hour show. So we decided not
Ooh.
to do that to you guys.
I decided not to do that to myself as well. For those that know, over on Tin Media, if you're watching this through the YouTube channel, I used to do 6, 7 hour shows. So yeah, I can understand that spacing this out is key because we are currently looking at an individual that has been glorified, has been at this point monopolized, capitalized off of not just his assassination, but his said, fact that we have to use this term because normally when we hear the term legacy, it is connected with positivity, and in this case, this man, there was nothing positive about him, and so yeah, 6 hours would be cool to do, but I think spacing this out the way that we have is the best way forward.
Yeah, I agree. And so there's so much to it. There's a lot that the
Yeah.
media isn't covering when it has to do with Charlie Kirk. There's the fallout and the censorship that the Trump administration has been hedging for us, that we know prior administrations, even the Biden administration, hands aren't clean on censorship, attacking protesters, trying to keep us from organizing against the capitalistic and colonial powers, and maintaining their dominance and hegemony. And that's really
Mhm.
what we're looking at. And Charlie Kirk is a linchpin right now in that. He's really um his murder has brought a lot to the surface of the currents in this country. But one of the things we're going to be talking about today, and Issac and I were talking about. Oh, and I didn't give my introduction. We're still we're still kind of getting our feet wet in all of this. So my name's Zeynab Day. I am a producer at Bullhorn Bulletin, which is my little news organization that I am going to be relaunching at the end of this month. Very, very excited about that. I have been a contributor over on Status Quo News. I've also worked in politics. I worked for Brand New Congress, where we recruited and I helped run campaigns for non-corporate candidates that didn't take PAC money. They didn't take corporate PAC money. More than 100 campaigns. And after that, I was an executive director of a third party. And then I went on back to journalism, which is my roots. My roots were as a journalist, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So I'm very, very excited that Isaac and I decided to do this collaboration together. And
Yeah,
we've been
and I
working
think
hard. We've been talking about this stuff now for days and
mhm.
compiling this. And so much of our shared experiences covering news and covering these topics came into play with what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, I think, we connected on a level of frustration from the high intense frequencies of dehumanization that we were seeing, that we still see, mind you. And I think that, for one, people, don't really comprehend the amount that has been done of dehumanization. And hopefully today we can show you, how they did it, why it was done, and what's the agenda moving forward. So I'm happy to break this down with you. Really am.
And one of the things that we were probably most pissed off about is the fact that, Charlie Kirk is being cast as just a talking head that was on
Mm,
campus doing debates, and that's all he did. That was it. And he was, attacked, which I want to put it into focus that we don't really know who this supposed or alleged shooter was yet. When we know their name, we know who they've arrested. We don't know much background on this person.
mhm.
There's all kinds of theories flying around about what could have happened, from foreign entities took him out, to it was the Fed, to it was, the left wing or the right wing. But the reality is we don't know yet. We
Mm.
don't know yet, which is the case in most of these kinds of shootings or incidents. So we won't be digging into that aspect as much, because we're going to cover other aspects that aren't being talked about. And I
Yes,
think that
please.
it's super important. And Isaac recently did recently did a video about Stephen A. Smith. And I don't know how you feel about it, Isaac, but I think the clip that you pulled, and if you want to introduce it and everything, but I think the clip that you pulled about from Stephen A. Smith kind of couches where we're going to be going in all of this discussion today.
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith, unfortunately, has fallen victim to black conservatism, to aligning not just his pockets, but also his what's left of his intellect with the oligarchical class, and he finds it very uh, apropos to do their bidding.
Oh,
Uh,
fancy word.
yeah, right. He has done this for quite some time now, and we are now seeing a culmination of bits and pieces of it take fold into the wake of the fact that he did not even his I would say him and his studio, his producers, did not even look as far as to question some of the said facts that he was going over in his show, which were not facts at all. And I had to put it from a perspective that I only know how, which is I'm Afro-Indigenous. I am a Pan-Africanist. I subscribe to scientific socialism, and I do not believe that we need to be sucking up to oligarchs, the same oligarchs that demonize and oppress us. And I think that that line is very clear. And I made it very clear in my video, which you guys can check out on this network. And if you are watching this on Bullhorn Bulletin, I highly advise you to go crossover. This is equivalent to DC's Elseworlds. We have crossed over, and so I highly advise you to do, vice versa. My viewers and Zaina. I I would like, if we could, let's start with that clip of him, before I get into anything more, because it's very telling. It's very telling.
Yeah.
I care about the fact that a man was gunned down in front of two of his children who are 5 years of age or less. That he's dead at the age of 31. That his wife is a widow. That his children are fatherless. Because his ideas and his beliefs differed from somebody else, apparently. And then I'm going online and I'm seeing people celebrating it. Shame. Shame on you. Props to the New York Yankees organization last night for having a moment of silence. If you're a left winger instead of a right winger, you might not have liked that. You're missing the point. This man was shot and killed from 200 yards away in front of his wife and children and thousands of onlookers who had come to see him, Mr. Charlie Kirk, who had been going from campus to campus, simply debating his ideas against those who might differ from him. That's all. And his life was taken. He's gone at 31 just because he expressed thoughts that differed from somebody else, apparently. And some might blame it because, oh my God, he's friends with the president. And they may not be a Donald Trump supporter. I'm saying bump all that. He's a human being living in the United States of America. This is America. We're not supposed to condone stuff like this. We're not supposed to say it's okay. I don't give a damn who you are, black, white, or anything in between. You're a human being. That's your fellow man and fellow woman out there. That's your fellow brother and fellow sister out there. You got no business thinking like that. And you damn sure have no business doing something as heinous as that shooter who's still on a loose, by the way. So I applaud the New York Yankees for having.
This is America.
I mean, you know, I think that what he doesn't even understand his own words, you know, towards the end, especially the America part. This has always been what America has done. Sorry, but it is. And, you know, where is that same outrage, Stephen A. Smith, for Tortuguita, for Sonia Massey, who is slain in her own home, after calling, for help. Where is all of this outrage at? And I think it's even more fitting, because he lied in the beginning. Either he lied or he was not giving articulate, factual information regarding how this happened. Charlie Kirk's children were not there, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show, and who confessed that. This narrative, one, that he was an individual that debated, and was for quote unquote free speech. He was not for free speech. If he was, then he wouldn't be against critical race theory, diverse equity and inclusion. Equity is being able to have free speech. That's a big part of it, diversity.
TPUSA wouldn't have entire programs, which we'll mention a little bit, and that'll be a broader thing that we'll be doing another show on completely. But Charlie Kirk's organization, TPUSA, has 2 different websites for docking K through 12 teachers as well as college professors and administrators. Doxing them if they teach things that people don't like racism existed, and that, no, there weren't, slave owners that treated their slaves like, their own family members.
That, and also too, it shows a level of laziness when it comes to journalism and it comes to broadcasting, because these things are very easy to find. It did not take me to have to usher in a freedom of information request. I didn't have to do any of that. This is all over the internet regarding how this man spoke, how his organization moved, and who they operated with to make sure that these agendas were put in place. And like you said, we're going to be going over in an episode 2 extensively about TPUSA and their involvement with some very nasty techno-fascists and oligarchs, and where this, where the, and sorry that I have to, use this, but it's, where the money resides, where the money resides. Where is it coming from? What is the dark money? Because it's very visible when you put a spotlight on it. Like I said, the laziness that was there, I think, easy to find information regarding how this, person thought. And I think coming at it from trying to quote unquote, love thy neighbor is not it's not it's not, I'm sorry, but it's not the way Charlie Kirk would have wanted you to handle this, even in the wake of his death, as much as that is
Well,
a belly laugh.
Charlie Kirk called for, one of the things that he had mentioned in a podcast himself, as well as on his own show, was that he supports, scarily, that he supported mass executions of leftist public executions, and that any child older than 12 should be forced to watch them. Such insane rhetoric. I mean, it does go beyond rhetoric, though. TPUSA was responsible for policy. They were responsible for dozens and dozens of initiatives. The impact that they have had on the country was broad, and he was successful. He was successful at spreading fascism. But, we didn't hear Stephen talk about Mark and Melissa Hortman that were killed by a gunman, to a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband, or John and Yvette Hoffman that were shot by the same gunman, that were injured and are still recovering from that. So where were the flags at half-mast for them? Where was the moment of silence from the New York Mets? Where?
I could even, not that we're here for brownie points or one-upping anybody, but just to add context, comrade, where was the flags half-mast for Evergreen, Colorado, who on the same exact day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, a mass shooting happened? Where is the flags half-mast for the individuals that were injured and killed in a mass shooting at a homeless encampment that happened in Minneapolis? Where are the flags half-mast for all of the individuals that lost their homes in LA, and have had to live in shelters since then, and have had to, leave everything behind, if not nothing, because it's been burned to ash, to start anew? Where are the flags half-mast for these people? Or better yet, where are the flags half-mast for the individuals that you have indoctrinated into going and fighting for fratricidal reasons abroad, and then coming back with a clear notion that they were not fighting for freedom, they were fighting for extraction of resources from indigenous communities? So where are the flags half-mast for this? And I'm again, like I told you, I'm a Pan-Africanist, so I see it from a different perspective. This is the system working as designed. It was never intended to be, respectful to those that it exploits. And I think that should be something that was, can be made very clear for the viewers. Is they should be doing this, but they're not going to, because again, Trump's favorite Nazi, decided to, say a little bit too much, and we've seen the fountain of youth, so to say.
Well, they ain't like us. Stephen A. Smith ain't like us. He's got this platform. He's somebody that does something like Charlie Kirk. He's a propagandist, right? He comes from he's high rolling now. He's got a lot of money, got a lot of support. He's got shows on maybe it's is it iHeartRadio?
Sirius XM.
Yeah, Sirius XM. So he's syndicated. So just like how Dean Withers, they call him left wing, but he's not, the DNC talking head, little frat boy looking guy that goes around and debates conservatives, but really his rhetoric is still extraordinarily milquetoast. He was whitewashing the genocide that the Biden
Yep.
administration was culpable with. He was whitewashing Biden's legacy when it comes to when confronted with by Black and brown people. He gaslights about Biden's legacy when it comes to the crime bill and to things like stop and frisk. But Dean Withers, when Charlie Kirk dies, he cried. He cried, and I think it's because they ain't like us. I think it's because they don't come from our caste. They're not the struggling people. They're afraid, oh, my face is out there. I'm making money off this. Can I be a target? And that's that's some of what they're centering here. I think it's a little bit beyond that. It's virtue signaling for Stephen A. Smith, but I think part of it is because he's out of touch with what it is to struggle, and he sees himself more in a Charlie Kirk than he does an Isaac Jasper. 100%.
Well, and this is, Fanon talks about this in Black Skin, White Mass, which I highly advise individuals to read. If you aren't a Pan-Africanist, if you are a Pan-Africanist or subscribe to Pan-Africanism and you have not read that, I highly advise that you do, because it gives you a clear understanding of like the psychological warfare that is enacted onto the African masses of people. Is that Stephen A. Smith thinks because he says Mr. Charlie Kirk and he, shucks and jives to the system, that he in essence is safe, and that is a lie, for lack of a better term.
It's a fallacy.
That is a fallacy, a conformity, because what you're alluding to is that you have no ability to find yourself outside of the capitalist enterprise, and that's essentially what he has said by being syndicated off of the wrong reasons too. Let's just be fair. Before 2008, Stephen A. Smith was not someone who was well respected, so much so that he had 5 people watching him on a radio show, and the 5 people that were watching him were his family members. This individual rebranded himself and came back with First Take, and it was completely a different model that worked with the capitalist enterprise as he was intended to do. This system does not create these individuals for the sole aspiration of them becoming their enemies. They put all the money into these individuals like Stephen A. Smith because they know that that's what he'll take. That's what he wants. That's what he's always wanted. And seeing him, over time do as, for lack of a better phrase, as Massa says, it's very gut wrenching, because it shows the level of indoctrination that we have. Is that at a level like this, where we're living in a world where we had a Stuart Scott and we don't have him anymore, would he be for what Stephen A. Smith said? No, I don't think he would, because he understood the value of culture, quote unquote, and under this enterprise. And so Stephen A. Smith should be ashamed of himself, nonetheless, for
Another clip that you
yeah.
shared of him, and we don't have to dig into it, but another clip that you shared of him in the show that you had done,
hmm
that I thought was just staggering, was he was just basically like, be complicit with the fascism, get in line, close your doors, deal with the National Guard being in your cities. You have to deal with it. And that's essentially the
Yeah.
message. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. Of course, that's not exactly how he said it. But essentially, he's like, yeah, this train is on the track. It's speeding towards you. And the best thing you can do is lay down on the tracks.
And that shows you the level of incompetency that a man like that has, but gets financially compensated for. Is that you're telling people to simply do something that is so dangerous. It is so dangerous beyond repair at that point too, because you're indoctrinating people into believing that at any given moment that we see authoritarian techno-fascism on the rise, we just bend the knee for it. When bending the knee, all that does is, it's like adding nitrous to a car. It makes it go faster. It accelerates itself. And I think people don't understand the dangerous levels of even media, how they're utilizing even sports journalists right now, to try and perpetuate a narrative. I want to give a shout out to Chuck Modi and Eton Thomas, The Collision, and there's also another co-host of theirs, and I deeply apologize for not knowing the individual's name, but they broke down a little bit of what we're going over today, and I highly advise individuals to go over there and check that out, because they're utilizing every facet of media to try and perpetuate a narrative that Charlie Kirk was just a debate bro. A debate bro doesn't roll out legislation that got a individual from the African diaspora put on life support after, being for, being confirmed, deceased, kept them on life support, decomposed practically at that rate, so that they can bring a baby to term. This is the Charlie Kirk that I know. This is the Charlie Kirk that, said horrible things like, Breonna Taylor was a quote whore, end quote. That George Floyd died of a drug overdose and then funded for the harassment of his daughter. I don't know a Charlie Kirk that love thy neighbor the way that they say.
Well, we do have a clip. We do have a clip of a montage from Charlie Kirk. If folks want to hear the words straight out of his mouth.
To shoot, I think that in regards to, I think we should play that montage. But JD Vance's whitewashing, I think for us is the kind of the cherry on top, because this is coming from the administration that is spearheading at this rate now, this agenda, this techno-fascist agenda, and he's made it seem like Charlie Kirk was just this golden boy of acceptance and love and grace, and that he was assassinated for that reason. As stated, we don't know what he was assassinated for, and we're not here to entertain that. We're here to give the people the chance to be able to see the true side of Charlie Kirk. And I think that this JD Vance clip that we have queued up really puts into perspective how they're trying to spin this right now.
Yeah, let's take a listen.
Be mindful of time here. A lot of people are very worried about how we got here in the first place. And you have the crazies on the far left who are saying, oh, Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance, they're going to go after constitutionally protected speech. No, we're going to go after the NGO network that foments, facilitates, and engages in violence. That's not okay. Violence is not okay in our system, and we want to make it less likely that that happens. Walk me through, at a high level, like what you and I have been working on, what the whole administration has been working on to try to make sure that we don't reward and promote this craziness.
Yes, so it's an excellent question. I said this before, and but it bears repeating. The last message that Charlie sent me was, I think it was just the day before we lost him, which is that we need to have an organized strategy to go after the left-wing organizations that are promoting violence in this country. And I will write those words onto my heart, and I will carry them out. If people ask me, what emotions I'm feeling right now, this is something people say. I mean, you kind of know the answer. There's incredible sadness, but there's incredible anger. And the thing about anger is that unfocused anger or blind rage is not a productive emotion.
Right.
But focused anger, righteous anger, directed for a just cause is one of the most important agents of change in human history.
Charlie showed that. Amen.
And we are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So,
I've got 30 seconds, so be quick, Stephen.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence, it is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
Thank you, Stephen. Don't go away. I'll be joined.
Scary.
Yeah, I mean, where do you begin in regards to that, other than the fact that that sounded like if that sounded like someone from Nazi Germany, just we didn't hear it in Dutch.
Mhm.
Utilizing the Department of Justice to go after your enemies. But I thought we lived in a world where free speech was okay. That you're not caring about your political opponents, because again, at the end of the day, political violence isn't right, but yet you're invoking political violence. So it's such a hypocritical moment, but it also paints a very clear picture too, that they're not caring about who killed Charlie Kirk, even if that was up for a topic of discussion for us today. They're not interested in that either. They don't care. They're interested in capitalizing off of the fact that TPUSA, that spearheaded a neo-Nazi conservative Christian, agenda, that they now have the ability to take the reins of that. This sit down happened, if I'm not mistaken, 2 days after Charlie Kirk's, death.
It was on Charlie Kirk's show.
Yes, and on Charlie Kirk's show. So the capitalization of this man's death and putting themselves in a position to make sure that that work continues is being platformed in our face as we speak. Who would have thought that the Vice President of the United States of the occupation of Turtle Island would be a vlogger, a podcaster? This is the world that we're living in, where they're trying to normalize this behavior and then classify free speech or hate speech as free speech. It's disgusting to see this happen. It's disgusting to see individuals glorify this behavior, and expect people like me, from whether you're from the Pan African or from any diaspora, to agree with this, and we know that this is not right. This is a violation of free speech, and what you're doing is you're trying to demonize those that have what you classify as progressive values, but no, they're human values. I value humanity. I value people's lives, and they're showing clearly the whitewashing of his life, but most importantly, what their intentions are, which is
What
to
they're
go
planning on
after.
doing next. So
Yeah.
regardless of how this happened, regardless of who was involved, whatever it might be, the outcomes that they're wanting is essentially the same. So if this
Yes.
was just some random shooter that shot Charlie Kirk, they're capitalizing on it right now to steamroll in even more. We were already headed in this direction. They were already wanting to do this. Everything that they laid out there is no different than what Stephen Miller and JD Vance have been saying, and President Trump has been saying for months, if not years now. But this is an excuse. This is an excuse. And yet, despite that, we have liberals like Ezra Klein whitewashing him, whitewashing Charlie Kirk. We have this crazy article, and he and Ta-Nehisi Coates kind of had a back and forth, like dueling articles, right? And it's really shows some insight into kind of the Ta-Nehisi Coates was like, what the heck is going on here? And in response to Charlie Kirk, in response to Ezra Klein's article, and if I can remind people, Ezra Klein is a reporter for the New York Times, but he also recently wrote the book Abundance. And abundance theory is a very neoconservative model of capitalism that the Democratic Party is now trying to peddle to us as the new alternative to any type of socialistic reforms whatsoever. It's not that much different from what the techno bros are wanting us to do. It's deregulation, it's trickle down economics, it's Reagan era politics. So this is the dude. Is it okay if we go ahead and pull that article up, Isaac?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think that'd be a good time to pull that up.
Okay.
I thought that this was hilarious, not just the back and forth, but the level of dehumanization regarding those that were actually affected by this individual and what he was a part of, but also the whitewashing of a said legacy, that that should never ever be rewarded. And it, this verbiage is coming out like a form of rewarding him.
Yeah,
He should be remembered because of what he did for us. And the article writer, the journalist at hand, um,
Ezra Klein.
all I have to say is that, for those that don't know, the New York Post, the Washington Post, these are all posts that were given notices to, dilute or not even talk about in general the genocide that we have been seeing for our very eyes on our phones. And so I just want to make that very clear that, that this, it does not surprise me the way that he wrote this article at all by any
And
stretch.
Ezra
And
Klein has been gaslighting about the genocide for a while now, but I
yeah,
did want to read a couple of excerpts, if that's okay, like
go
so that
ahead.
people get an understanding of like kind of what's in this. Charlie Kirk and the right way to practice politics. Supposed to be a play on words at first. You think, okay, the right, and then he goes on to say, Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way by Ezra Klein. Mr. Klein is wrong in his claims that Charlie Kirk practiced politics in exactly the right way. Well, oh, wait. I guess I don't have, this is someone else. Ah, here we go. Sorry
There
about
we
that.
go.
Charlie Kirk was, that was a response. That was another response to
Those
him.
response to him, that's great.
Yeah.
Should we read that? Should read that after Ta-Nehisi's.
Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way by Ezra Klein. And remember, this guy does make rounds on CNN, MSNBC. If you guys are unfamiliar with him, he is basically a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party in a lot of ways. He's a foundational milquetoast liberal. It's really a neoconservative. The foundation of a free society is the ability to participate in politics without fear of violence. To lose that is to risk losing everything. Charlie Kirk and his family just lost everything. As a country, we came a step closer to losing everything too. We've been edging closer for some time now. In 2020, a plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, was foiled by the FBI. In 2021, a mob stormed the Capitol in an effort to overrun the result of the election, and pipe bombs were found at the Democratic and Republican National Committee headquarters. In 2022, a man broke into the home of Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House at the time, intending to kidnap her. She was absent, but the intruder assaulted her 82-year-old husband. That same year, Brian Thompson, the chief executive of United Healthcare, was murdered. He goes on to name several other things that happened. And then he goes on to say, you can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and this is where he doesn't acknowledge that Charlie Kirk has in part been an instigator of violence nationwide. And it's very frustrating. So you can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him. He was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. Oh my God. When the left thought its hold on the hearts and minds of college students was nearly absolute, Kirk showed up again and again to break it. Slowly, then at once he did. College-age voters shifted sharply right in the 2024 election. Is that practicing politics in the right way? Is that a good thing, Isaac?
By any stretch, those that believe that is the way that you go about making a political career, no. This individual didn't. I'm gonna let you continue, but it's funny the way that he wrote this. It really is, because he's
It's
trying to
so
make it seem like Kirk came in with a new vision and a new, like, no, all he did was take Joe Rogan, what Joe Rogan was doing, and he said, I'm gonna apply that to universities. I'm gonna put a microphone in front of me, and I'm gonna debate some of the most factual or infactual things and say that they're factual. And I'm going to use
I'm going to go on a
God.
gaslighting tour, and that's what he
Yeah,
did. He went on a
and
gaslighting tour.
I'm going to use God to justify it. What does that
Mhm.
sound like? That sounds like a neo-colonial aesthetic that he has shifted into manipulating the masses of people to believe that everything that comes out of his mouth is correct and he should question even the question. It's
Mhm.
it's it's ridiculous. And the same with Stephen A. Smith is the same with Klein. These people should be ashamed of themselves. They should be
Oh, but
ashamed of themselves.
it gets worse. So that one paragraph was bad, but it actually gets worse if you could believe that. Maybe not worse than Stephen A. Smith, but yeah, I'll read on a little bit here. I won't read the whole article to you, but that was not all Kirk's doing, but he was central in laying the groundwork for it. I did not know Kirk, and I am not the right person to eulogize him, but I envied what he built. A taste for disagreement is a virtue in a democracy. Liberalism could use more of his moxie and fearlessness. In the inaugural episode of his podcast, Governor Gavin Newsom of California hosted Kirk, admitting that his son was a huge fan. What a testament to Kirk's project. On social media, I've seen mostly decent reactions to Kirk's murder. There is grief and shock from both the left and right, but I've seen two forms of reaction that are misguided, however comprehensible the rage of horror that provoked them. One is a move on the left to wrap Kirk's death around his views. After all, he defended the Second Amendment, even admitting it meant he did, but that's even admitting it meant accepting innocent deaths. Another is on the right to turn his murder into justification for an all-out war or Reichstag fire for our time. But as the list above reveals, there is no world in which political violence escalates but is contained to just your foes. Even if that were possible, it would still be a world of horrors, a society that had collapsed into the most irreversible form of unfreedom. Political violence is a virus. It is contagious. We have been through periods in this country when it was endemic. And then he goes on to talk about that. So
Gavin
Ezra
Newsom,
Klein,
of all
his
people.
views there it's very whitewashed. It's this idea that, so what about the political violence that has now, the latest estimates are that that upwards of 800,000 people could have been killed in Gaza. Is that not in Gaza at the hands of Israel? Is that not political violence? 800,000 people, and Ezra Klein has been virtually silent about it, if not whitewashing it.
Advocating for solutions that he knows only suit the oppressor. This little piece opinion, this is just one big comment. Like this is just one big comment on a situation. And it's very biased. And we see through not just from the top to the bottom, we see a very clear message that they want to normalize neo-fascist conservative ideology, and they want to demonize those and classify them as left-wing for not subscribing to that said ideology. Charlie Kirk was a good manipulator. He was not an intellectual he was an intellectual manipulator. He was
He was
not an
very skilled
intellectual.
at propaganda. Very skilled
Yes.
at propaganda, yeah.
I think that is the telling sign, because he has people like Ezra Klein. I mean, he has other people like I think it was who
Like
just
Gavin
recently,
Newsom's son.
like Gavin Newsom's son, and do not be surprised by Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom has always been a soft tone fascist. That's what he's always been. He will always be a soft tone fascist. He's always advocated for the suppression of speech, the suppression of rights, all of that. just because he has came out with articles and legislation that has helped, he has to balance that out so that he keeps himself in the position that he's in. He has advocated and has worked with people like the Resnicks that own majority of California's water in the Central Valley, which is completely crippling communities that I grew up in that are also indigenous communities as well. The Resnicks are funding a war against Iran so that they can be the major distributors of pistachios, which do not even grow in California. So these are the people that we're working with. And Gavin Newsom, he sucks the toes of these people, figuratively and probably literally. It's just one of those. It's just one of those. It's an image that you don't want, but unfortunately you have to have because it gets you to see who we're dealing with. And I think one, we have a clip that's coming up. Mike Johnson, being a fucking hypocrite, excuse my French, but being a hypocrite by saying, labeling your political opponents, as fascists is dangerous. Well, I think invoking executive legislation, against your political opponents is a violation of free speech, and it shouldn't happen. So I just think that these people don't know when to not be hypocritical.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's a little bit of what Ta-Nehisi Coates hit on here. And we can show a little bit of his article. So Charlie Kirk redeemed a political class finds its lost cause by ignoring the rhetoric and actions of the Turning Point USA founder, pundits, and politicians are sanitizing his legacy. So Ta-Nehisi Coates goes on to say, before he was killed last week, Charlie Kirk left a helpful compendium of words, ones that would greatly aid those who sought to understand his legacy and import. It is somewhat difficult to match these words with the manner in which Kirk is presently being normalized in mainstream discourse. New York Times columnist Ezra Klein dubbed Kirk one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion, and a man who is practicing politics in exactly the right way. California Gavin Newsom hailed Kirk's passion and commitment to debate, advising us to continue Kirk's work by engaging with each other across ideology through spirited discourse. Oh, God. Atlantic writer Shelley Jenkins saluted Kirk. These are all people that are supposed to be on the left wing, right? Not left, but they're liberals. And they're all supporters of the Democratic Party. Atlantic writer Shelley Jenkins saluted Kirk, claiming he argued with civility and asserting that his death was a significant loss for those who believed engagement can help bridge disagreements. The mentions of debate and engagement are references to Kirk's campus tours, during which he visited various college campuses to take on whoever may come. That this aspect of Kirk's work would be so attractive to writers and politicians is understandable. There is, after all, a pervasive worry among political class that college students ensconced within their own bubbles could use a bit of shock therapy from a man unconcerned with preferred pronouns, trigger warnings, and the humanity of Palestinians. But it also shows how the political class's obsession with universities blinds it to everything else. And the everything else of Kirk's politics amounted to a little more than a loathing of those whose mere existence provoked his ire. It's not just, for instance, that Kirk held disagreeable views, that he was pro-life, that he believed in public executions, or that he rejected the separation of church and state. It's that Kirk revealed an open bigotry. Indeed, claims of Kirk's civility are tough to square with his penchant for demeaning members of the LGBT community as freaks and referring to trans people with the slur tranny. Faced with the prospect of Kamala Harris' presidency, Kirk told his audience that the threat had to be averted because Harris wanted to, quote unquote, kidnap your child via the trans agenda. Garden variety transphobia is sadly unremarkable, but Kirk was a master of folding seemingly discordant bigotries into each other when he defined the quote-unquote American way of life as marriage, home ownership, and child rearing, free of lesbian, gay, transgender garbage in their schools, adding that he did not want kids to, quote unquote, have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. So he goes on to say that, Kirk also assailed Zoran Mamdani as a threat to America because he's Muslim. He called him Mohammedan, which is so crazy. He also goes on to say that, Kirk was always talking about black crime. Prowling blacks go around for fun to target white people. He called Yusuf Salon, a New York City councilman, a disgusting pig, accusing him of gang rape because he was Muslim. So he
puts, I mean, and this is why I really admire Ta-Nehisi Coates, because, it does not take very much for someone to realize what is going on and for them to swiftly make the corrections that are needed to be made. And I'm not here to debate, Ta-Nehisi's political aspirations or any of that. I'm here, to give my viewers and to help out in the process of getting people to understand that Ta-Nehisi is that mofo right now, because he's making sure that people understand this man was not someone who was of good. Again, like I alluded to in my own personal video, he woke up every day and chose to be a bigot. He woke up every single day and chose to be a bigot. How do we glorify that other than us living under a capitalist system that always has done that? Now, our problem is with the masses of people that have fallen for this trap of stating that Charlie Kirk is just some individual, who was just debating, his feelings. No, he wasn't. I don't think 727 articles of legislation and then some is just feeling. It's just some emotion. No, that is someone who had motive, who had an agenda, who was groomed. Let's also not forget, Charlie Kirk didn't fund this thing by himself. He didn't found it by himself either. Bill Montgomery helped this out. For those who don't know, Bill Montgomery helped him found it in 2012, for which started, and now he spearheads with his wife, $85 million plus in revenue, of which tens of millions of dollars is just, nowhere to be seen, not accounted for. It's there, but it's not accounted for. We don't really know what it's being used for. Spearheading a whole entire organization that now wants to roll out, putting these institutions in all of the high schools. So what does this sound like? This sounds like
that
them.
is one thing that he does mention. Ta-Nehisi Coates does mention TPUSA in his article.
Yeah, that they are spearheading an agenda that is very much identical and in a very scary way to the youth groups that they created during Nazi Germany, that put little German boys in Gestapo uniforms and in Nazi uniforms and made them, shoot innocent people or hate, Jewish people, hate people of color, hate people whose face wasn't white and their hair wasn't blonde and their eyes weren't blue eyes, and to hold them to a high standard of superiority. I love that Ta-Nehisi Coates is putting this in where it should be. Do not glorify Nazis. When have we, as a diaspora, as a leftist caucus, as a scientific socialist, group of people that aspire to these ideologies, when have we ever done that? Now, the system in of it itself has, but the question is when have we individually or collectively as a resistance glorified or took a moment of silence for our ops, for all the young ones out there? When have we done that? I don't think we have. And I think the message is clear through not just this article, but what we're talking about here. That the truthful narrative is that he was a bigot, and that's how we should see him as a bigot. Classification under neocolonial. You know, so I'm not surprised, you know, and him calling Yusuf Salam, again, for those that don't know, Yusuf Salam was a member of the Central Park Five. The Central Park Five were demonized, they were oppressed, and they were held for being innocent of a crime that Donald Trump even then said that they committed and that they should be held and tried as adults for what they did to someone that they didn't do. This is the world that we're living in. The person that said that back then is now the president of the United States. So I think this quote is very important, Zaina, if you don't mind me quickly just going over the last bit of this, because I do want your insight regarding the shit show that we are seeing for our very eyes. More than a century and a half ago, this country ignored the explicit words of men who sought to raise an empire of slavery. It subsequently transformed those men into gallant knights who sought only to preserve their beloved Camelot. There was a fatigue in certain quarters with Reconstruction, which is to say, multiracial democracy and a desire for reunion to make America great again. Thus, in the late 19th century, as much in the 20th century, this country's most storied intellectuals transfigured hate mongers into heroes and ignored their words, just as right now some are ignoring Kirk's. What are your, well, actually, there's a little bit more. Bear with me. Sorry, guys. Words are not violence, nor are they powerless. Bearing the truth of the Confederacy, rewriting its aims and ideas, and ignoring its animating words allowed for the terrorization of the black population, the imposition of apartheid, and the destruction of democracy. The rewriting of the ignoring were done not just by Confederates, but also by punitive allies for whom the reduction of black people to the selfdom was unfortunate, the unfortunate price of white unity. The import of this history has never been clearer than it is in this moment, when the hard question must be asked: if you would look away from the words of Charlie Kirk, from what else would you look away? Just what are your thoughts on this, the last bit of this beautiful piece? By the way, I highly advise people to go and take a look at that.
I think that he's right on the looking away from the words, and we also have to look away. We can't look away from the deeds, which we're going to dig into a little bit more. And we do have a clip of a montage of some of Charlie Kirk's quotes that we'll be sharing with you guys as well. I think that the whitewashing of the Confederacy, the whitewashing of the struggles that we've had, the struggles of apartheid, the struggles of oligarchy, classism. We're seeing it right now in the Smithsonian, for instance, with Donald Trump wanting to go in and take out entire exhibits that are focused on slavery. We focus way too much on white fifis than we do on the actual history, and whitewashing the history, just like they're whitewashing Charlie Kirk's death, is intentional.
I completely agree with you. The again, level of dehumanization, level of whitewashing, it's very clear. But if you did not, in the moment's time, through this, this breakdown, understand even those words that Ta-Nehisi was stating, and you still don't believe that Charlie Kirk was a bigot, 3 minutes and 22 seconds will tell you otherwise, which is very it's very disgusting. I wanted, before we go to that clip though, if you could speak to the level of dehumanization that you have felt in the wake of this, because I think that people of color have had to feel a level of dehumanization that is beyond even the scope of living under racial capitalism. Could you just break that down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we were all around after 9/11 and what happened with the rise of the Patriot Act, the erosion of our rights as far back as then. For a while, I was personally on the no-fly list because of my last name. My last name is different than the name that I have here. My original last name is an Iranian last name. My father's from Iran. And so experienced being denied for a passport because of that during that period. And that's just one smaller example, but it's not small in the face of like civil liberties, right? But it's small in the face of all the different kinds of things, from that to people being blacklisted for supporting boycott, divest, and sanction against Israel, to the constant dehumanization against migrants and ICE right now. Department of Homeland Security's Twitter X page looks like a 4chan from 2012. It was friggin' 4chan memes up there, man. It's embarrassing from the White House. And whitewashing his legacy is just some rhetoric, is dehumanizing, because it basically says that people like me and you, and the struggles that we have and the struggles that our generations have had historically, doesn't matter and isn't important and doesn't even really need to be talked about. In fact, it needs to be buried and hidden. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'm right on I mean, we're in the same boat, just we're on different sides with, with different paddles. This is a level of dehumanization that I never thought that I'd see from my very eyes. Now mind you, we've been desensitized for 2 years to what's going on in Gaza. So there is a level of me that just is numb to this. I've had to see headless babies, actual headless babies. I've had to, mourn the death and the martyring of some of my colleagues as a journalist, and I think that
Me too.
is and my friends too, some that weren't journalists. They were just individuals that were going to university. They were just trying to live, one of them now, his name is Mohammed Aroki. All he wants to do is teach English. Imagine that. The language that's currently oppressing you. All he wants to do is teach people it, and they're stopping him from doing that. So I'm right there with you. This level of dehumanization is beyond
And Charlie
comprehension, I
Kirk is
think.
one of the ones that actively dehumanized and has dehumanized Palestinians for even before October 7th, for years now. He's been dehumanizing anyone who's Middle Eastern, anyone who's Muslim, the Palestinian people, migrants to the United States. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Again, we've broken down the whitewashing. Now I think it's pretty clear for you guys to see for your very eyes if you are watching, and thank you guys for watching too. Um, the level of dehumanization that came out of the mouth of this man, which was it was next level, and it was glorified by the administration, and it was glorified by those that have very little, if not any, intellect at all, when it comes to biology, all of that. So
I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. The Civil Rights Act was a mistake.
More cops should be around your neighborhood. Why do blacks have a broken family?
White person were to come up and say, black America really needs to get its act together and stop sleeping around all the time, and it needs to actually have
Why would you?
Because it's true.
When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Black America is worse than it has been in the last 80 years. What percentage of young blacks have both a mom and a dad raising them?
Of course we pandered to blacks. They're in every TV commercial.
And they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action?
Things got worse since the Civil Rights Act. More violent, less fathers around, poorer.
Why are we making racist jokes?
Well, look, it's a comedian that was put up on stage.
Yeah,
what do you expect? But I mean, man, can you take a joke?
You should be kissing the ground with gratitude, because you're right. You are not in Africa, and you should be thankful you're not in Africa. Certain skin color now gets their own summertime celebration. It's now become a racial complaining day. BLM, and remember what BLM stands for: burn, loot, and murder. America is poorer today than before we tried to start to help them.
Black women married the government and divorced the men that they were once with.
Happy Juneteenth. It should not be a federal holiday.
Half of all prisoners are black.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more crime. They commit more murders. They commit more arsons. They commit more kidnappings. It's not a profiling when it comes to that. Blacks are far more likely to commit crimes than any other group. See a black pilot, you wonder, boy, is that person there because they earned it or because they were placed there? When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous.
Death toll likely would not have been as high if it wasn't for DEI.
Black culture has collapsed the last 60 years. Systemic racism stuff is a bunch of rubbish. Instead, it's systemic bad choices.
Do you feel that systemic racism isn't real?
Of course not.
How do you feel about the black community receiving reparations?
I'm against that. Yeah.
With the George Floyd protests,
Riots.
we have a supply and demand issue with racism in our country. We have an incredibly low supply of racism and an incredible demand to try to fulfill it. So we've created racism where it doesn't exist.
When I was being schooled, we have spent an entire month on slavery. Totally get it. Terrible thing. But we spent so little time on the brilliance of the founders and what they've created.
Is it about contemplating the good, the true, and the beautiful, or is it about being a gangbanger and trying to get as much money and sleep with as many girls? Time for us to stop listening to rap music and this degenerate hip-hop stuff.
Can you clarify your definition of critical race theory?
Call everything racist till you control it.
And we decided to basically usher in the Civil Rights Act as a new anti-racist dogma creed. And I find something fundamentally wrong with that.
What would you say is the biggest non-issue that people make out to be a massive issue?
Okay, great. So I would say, it's not a surprise what I would say, racism.
Whew.
Man, I wonder what it would look like if we did a tally of how many times he said the word blacks.
So it's funny that you said that. Because every time that he went on his live, he had something derogatory to say about the African community, and that was 3 minutes of 31 year or of 10 years of him talking the way that he did and advocating for the inhumane and dehumanizing legislation that has been rolled out before his assassination. So it makes you question, Zaina. Are we the crazies for thinking this way? I don't think so. I don't think we're crazy at all. I think we're truth tellers. We see these people for who they are and who they always have been. So
yeah, and he said he's talked about women being in the kitchen and being subservient to their husbands, that on a regular basis. He said that marital rape can't happen. He said that children, that even if his daughter was 10 years old and she was sexually assaulted and she got pregnant, that he would expect her to carry that child to a term. He said that transgender people shouldn't exist. He said that, it's just a mountain of hate. That every Muslim should be deported. He, like I said before, he's advocated for public execution of leftist. He said that Antifa should be designated a terrorist organization. Antifa is not even an organization. It simply means anti-fascist. So it's very telling if he thinks that, anti-fascism is problematic. So what does that make him? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's the Black community he's definitely attacked over and over again, and it's a litany of other communities. Basically, any marginalized community, the poor, the homeless, the marginalized, single mothers. And the list goes on and on and on. It's almost endless. Everything out of this man's mouth was some kind of hate toward communities that are oppressed. That's it. Oppressed communities need to shut their damn mouths was his dogma.
They were taking the shut up and dribble term and trying to apply it to individuals that were advocating for their own sovereignty, to be able to say certain, to be able to live their life, to be able to be Black and proud, and be proud of that. he didn't like that. He didn't like the glorification, and we see it through, festering through the administration as well. Them, the taking down of Smithsonian's, all of that, and I think we agree that, one, he was not just some church boy by any stretch. He was no church boy. He was a groomed, well mannered bigot. For lack of a better term. Yeah, I think also too, with the level of dehumanization that we see, we also see a level of not caring that comes with this, and that adds to the dehumanization. That adds to the reinforcing, that there's only a select people that stand in a position of solidarity versus what we thought. I mean, how many people did you lose, Zaina, because of this situation, that were followers, that you actually thought were said leftists, and that's a genuine question, because I've lost high school, people from high school that are no longer my, communication, and I'm kind of glad, because you showed a side of yourself that is now open, is now visible, is that you glorify Nazis. So
yeah, and people are like, so horrific, what happened? This man was shot. But honestly, when I saw the video of him being shot, I was upset because I didn't feel what I thought I would feel for that, because it is another human being. Instead, I have been desensitized by daily, like you had mentioned before, by daily seeing videos coming out of Gaza of children with their legs and arms dismembered from their bodies, of people that have been blown up, of a father carrying the remains of his son in a supermarket bag. You see that kind of thing, and then you expect me to have some kind of like shock and awe. Why do people have shock for that, but not for these images out of Gaza? Is it because they see more of themselves in a Charlie Kirk than they do in the children that are starving to death right now because Israel refuses to disseminate aid and the United States refuses to disseminate aid?
Yeah, and this is a part of a clear agenda, especially moving forward. And I think that this kind of rolls us into our next talking point segment that rolls us down this, unfortunate, not a party train, but a truth train of setting the record straight. We have people out here saying that he was a golden boy and that he was, someone who should not have, and I'm glad that you bring this up, Zaina, that I did not feel the way that I should have felt in the wake of this because of that desensitization. And I think now, more after, I'm kind of glad that I'm not feeling for him, because I should not. And they want us to so desperately right now feel that we have some connection to his lifeline, when it's the exact opposite. He wanted no one to have any connection to his lifeline that was of a color. So yeah, I know that we have a clip lined up regarding Fox News, talking about the level, the level of inhumanity that they have. They then want to question us for simply making memes, but you're advocating for what? And this clip is going to get you guys to see very clearly just the hypocrisy.
Yeah, and this is from Fox and Friends, and it's galling. It's very scary.
They have given
billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why?
Involuntary lethal injection.
Zeynab, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the same network that's telling you to feel sympathy, right? Somebody seeing this, and then at the same time having to cover things like Tortuguita. How do you, in the wake of this, comprehend the level of hypocrisy? It's astounding at this point. It's astounding.
Well, I know you, like me, covered what happened at the Stop Cop City protest in Atlanta. And for anyone that doesn't know, Tortuguita was one of the protesters. He was sitting down cross-legged with his arms in the air, and that's what the autopsy showed. And he was shot 19 times by police, an unarmed man, at an encampment trying to prevent a facility that was right outside of neighborhoods of Black people, that was going to be one of the largest training facilities, police training facilities in the U.S. Not to mention, these police officers were going to be also trained by IOF soldiers from Israel. They assassinated this man. There were no, I didn't see any flags half-mast. Did you? For Tortuguita?
Mm-mm.
I didn't see tears from Mike Johnson or Brian Kilmeade or any of these individuals. I didn't even see a response from the Biden administration other than charging 62 individuals on the ground there where it stopped city protest with RICO and terrorism charges. Guilty by association, because Joe Biden had created a policy that was so broad regarding domestic terrorism that he spent most of his time he didn't target Patriot Front. He targeted left-wing activists. 62 people charged.
And currently right now still are facing charges, for like you said, by association, for simply just standing up for what is right. And may Tortuguita soul rest in peace, and knowing that the fight that was left behind was picked up, and the level of dehumanization will not go unnoticed, and it will not be put in a position to be glorified either. Again, you want me to feel bad for a Nazi, but yet you're advocating for the euthanization of people who just want to eat, people who just need a home, who need mental health services. This is not right, and this is not a society by any stretch. This is a dystopia.
It's not so far from Gavin Newsom removing encampments with homeless people's encampments with his bare hands. So don't get us mixed. Both parties walk down this path.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom, I think in a matter of 12 hours, eradicated homeless people so that China could have a visit to San Francisco.
Yep.
That's not right. That's not right at all. And the fact that, one, this network and a plethora of others, and like, Ezra Klein and like Stephen A. Smith, paint this narrative that is so untruthful, and they silence the real terrorism that is inflicted onto people of color. That's not right. It's not right at all.
I think you make some really good, I see some of your notes here, and I think they're really good points about some of the increase in security. And you kind of talk about some of the quotes of people like Donald Trump and a letter sent to Bill Schroeder's parents. Did you want to weigh in about that?
Yeah,
I think you make some really good points there.
Yeah, the university that this happened at where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. On the 17th, they rolled out stricter security implementations. And this, coupled with the fact that we've seen since 2016, the Trump administration and many people who admire the Trump administration talk about how they want to overhaul universities, and they want to control the narrative at these universities, and they believe that these institutions are the birthplace for their demise. We see, a very clear image being painted, is that when Charlie Kirk was on UVU campuses, or for, better yet, all of those campuses, where was the university's urgency to protect students that were of color, for which this individual was rolling out legislation behind the scenes? So his day job was a debate bro, quote unquote, and his night job was rolling out legislation and speaking to some of the biggest oligarchs to implement security. Now, after this man has been assassinated, it shows the clear image that you're not there to invoke safety for the students. You're in there to invoke safety for the state that you represent. Now, what does that sound like, Zaina? Sounds like Kent State, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the Kent State atrocities. It sounds like they are willing to do any and everything that they possibly can to bring us back to a time in history where they had a little bit more power over people of color, and that they were able to overtly show it.
Yeah, and we actually have a clip from Kent State if you wanted us to play that. But if anyone doesn't know what Kent State was, it was there was a protest in the 1960s against the Vietnam War, and the National Guard was actually, sound familiar? The National Guard was called into Kent State. And now we've watched, and I know, Isaac, you've watched all these protests, these pro-Palestinian protests, these anti-genocide protests on campus, and just Chuck Modi, for instance, who you'll be speaking with in coming days, has covered a lot of this. Status Quo News covered a lot of these. I covered a lot of these protests as well. But the police just cracking heads, rolling in. These are peaceful protests, and the police were getting violent against anti-genocide protesters all across the country, and still are. And I think part of this initiative is to crack down on anti-genocide protest and to spread fear. But we could play this clip really quick if you want to, of like Kent State. So, because I know there's a lot of Gen Z that have never even heard of the Kent State massacre and what's happened. So I think this is one of the buried pieces of history, right?
I would say so, yes. And before we play this clip, I want to piggyback off of, the important facts that you laid out, is that this same rhetoric the same history is like being rolled out. This is a quote from Howard Means's an excerpt from 67 Shots by Howard Means, which goes over the days before, the days of, and the days after the Kent State atrocities. Quote, "A letter was sent to Bill Schroeder's parents, read in part, 'There's nothing better than a dead, destructive, riot-making communist, and that's what your son was. Be thankful he is gone.'" This is an individual that died during the Kent State atrocities. For those that don't know, people were sniped.
Yep, the National Guard were on rooftops snipering people.
Now,
unarmed protesters were being sniped by the National Guard.
Yeah, and this is what Trump wants. Mind you, Trump had alluded back in 2016, by stating, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters. This man firmly believes that implementing such behavior onto our youth will not serve him any accountability. He will not be held accountable for this. And I think, me and Zaina, which thank you for tuning in, to bash the fash, Bullhorn and Bulletin and Tin Media Production. We're here to tell the truth, and we're here to hold him accountable. And again, for those that don't know, Kent State atrocities is what they want to make all over this occupation right now. They want them, and they're going to use TPUSA to make sure that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at what happened for those who have not seen this. Older folks, this will jog your memory too. Yeah.
Leave this area immediately.
And all of a sudden I heard the shooting. And then I saw people dropping to the ground, and then I fell to the ground also because I couldn't walk anymore.
What happened here at Kent State University 50 years ago defined an age.
The guardsmen opened fire on the students.
67 shots. At an anti-Vietnam War protest, 4 dead, 9 injured.
4 dead, 9 injured. And Trump wants to start bringing National Guard. I'm waiting for the executive order to roll out for National Guard on campus, Isaac. I know that that's coming down the pike. And I'm going to call it right now. He's going to try to roll out National Guard at college campuses. He's called for it before. He talked about shooting people in the knees that were protesting Black Lives Matter protesters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he said that, people should be held on terrorism charges that were anti-genocide protesters. He's talked about criminalizing anyone who's protesting ICE right now. Openly. This isn't a secret. This isn't, behind the scenes. Literally they want to bring back Kent State. They support this. They want people afraid. This was a lesson. There was a turning point for the United States and a turning point in the turning point. I feel weird using that terminology now. So this was a zeitgeist moment. How about that? In the United States during this era that shifted the way that Americans viewed the Vietnam War. It rallied people around those that were protesting against the Vietnam War. But right now we're headed down the opposite path. This type of violence is happening. Tina Desiree Berg, they're using quote unquote non-lethal munitions, but there was a reporter who's reporting with Tina Desiree Berg that was shot in LA during the protest, where Trump called in the National Guard, the recent protest against ICE, where, a journalist was hospitalized, shot with non-lethal ammunition. So we're already seeing it. We see the police violence almost every time that there's a protest, and 95% of the time statistics show they are peaceful protests and the police are the first to get violent. There's a long storied history of this. And now we're talking about calling in military, calling in the National Guard. The executive orders where Trump implemented the National Guard in LA. One of the things about that when you look at the fine print, it basically says they can call in any military force for any reason that they want to any city that they want. It was extraordinarily broad, and the media didn't properly report on this. And we'll be digging into this more in the episode that we do on TPUSA, and we'll be talking about some of those executive orders and how they tie in together to this. It's an imperial boomerang, what they're testing out in Gaza, and the apartheid in the West Bank and Israel's apartheid is coming back home. That is a testing ground. The apartheid in Israel is a testing ground, and they are bringing it back home. And Charlie Kirk right now is a linchpin in all of this because he's being used as an excuse in order to say this man was shot by some left-wing extremist. We don't even know if that's damn well true. They were saying that from day one before we even knew who the shooter was. Yeah.
I mean, one thing that is very clear with this administration is that they're not stopping the fascism. They're not stopping the authoritarianism. They're not stopping any of it. And the Kent State atrocities is just a mirroring. It is a foreshadowing. And I'm glad that you bring it up, and I'm glad that you called it, because for those that don't know, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but as some might know, when it comes to hip hop, all things go back to Ray J. All things go back to Zay in regards to analysis. And I know you're right, because me and you have seen this play out literally in the week that we've accumulated not just this information but others for the episode that we're doing on TPUSA. We've been correct the whole entire time. 2026 is not just going to be a hot girl summer for people who think that that's what it is. So you can get your body right for 2026, but get your body right and get your mind right for over authoritarian fascism not to care how you think because they're not caring now. That's what we're
and
dealing
it's
with.
not going to wait. They're trying to implement as much as they can at rapid pace in rapid succession. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the video that we showed you guys, it shows the level of hypocrisy, that the right has shown. They do not care. They do not care, and they have at this point a very clear enough percentage of Democrats that believe in the right agenda to be able to roll out this legislation the way that we've seen. The fact that Hakeem Jeffries should be ashamed of himself for voting yes, or even putting himself in a position to be in the same chambers to vote for a Nazi to be given a national holiday, yet alone a Medal of Honor. It was described yesterday that he would be giving. I don't see this, but it's hypocritical.
A holiday. That's so crazy. Think about that. Think about that. Where's Fred Hampton's damn holiday? Where's Malcolm X's holiday?
Nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. But you want to know one thing that is very clear is the level of hypocrisy, because if I'm not mistaken, they want people to feel something for Charlie Kirk and to not idolize what has happened to him, to not, make fun of it, or that TPUSA is just a club. They just play cards.
It's just a nice college campus club.
No, a nice college campus club does not.
It's not basically the KKK guys,
For those that don't remember, I'm going to say a name that has been lost to a lot of people. Kyle Rittenhouse. He was propagated. He was put up. He was funded by TPUSA. And I think that this is funny because we have people being, and I know you have a clip of someone being arrested for making fun of Charlie Kirk. And this is the level of free speech that they're trying to attack at this point. Is that they're putting people in positions to where they cannot advocate for free speech or advocate their free speech. But is it really free speech, or is it selective speech that you're trying to invoke onto people? They're only allowed to say what you want them to say. And I just thought that this was funny, but I also thought the comment that was made after by someone was even more funnier. And I have comment to that, but this is going to turn out to be where everybody's just going to be arrested for what? For not being able to say that they hate Charlie Kirk?